Welcome, everyone. Thank you very much for joining me. I know you guys are busy. So we met last week at the Waterloo Engineering Competition at the University of Waterloo, and you guys were competing in the senior design competition.
Yeah, so every summer and fall terms, Waterloo puts on there you go, getting a thumbs up. Waterloo puts on an engineering competition sponsored by the Sir Stanford Fleming organization.
This year was a lot more, I think it was a very interesting little playscape that they had for us where we were creating our own rover that would be able to navigate the map that you see in the photo with all of its steep hills and terrain and collect some payloads across the board and bring them back to home base.
And this is what you start with at the beginning of the day, right?
We went through kind of an interesting design process that drew inspiration from different bugs and beetles. Because of the terrain that we were given and having such a small robot in comparison, we were thinking about how these small life forms kind of move around the earth and how we could adapt that to our red planet playscape, as Irina called it. And then we had little beetle pincers to grab the payloads, which was the point system within the playscape. So you had to go out, grab a payload, and bring it back to the home base.
So I was there as a judge, and I actually thought, okay, you had challenges, especially like with the pincers and so on, but this was end up being a very mobile, flexible little uh, creatures. Maybe Matthew, we can back up a little bit and you can talk about how you guys came together as a team.
All four of us are in the same mechatronics cohort here at the University of Waterloo. So we all know each other. We're friends through, a lot of ways. Last term, we entered three of us. This term, we brought in Arena. We thought it'd be a really solid team. We've all worked together in some sort of capacity. We're friends. And we're also thinking about doing our senior capstone project together. So
Mm.
the Waterloo Engineering Competition is a great place to make sure we can work together and share ideas and do things in a stressful environment while still working together well. And I think we were really able to achieve that. So it ends
Right.
up being about like a 6 hour block to build and make a presentation for it.
But next time I should take a picture of the 7 foot tower of pizza boxes.
It's definitely fun and camaraderie. It is at the end of the day always a competition. So, going through it, being invested in it, I think is part of the fun.
We wanted this to be not just a chance to get like a super robust, perfect robot, but to really try a new idea that we'd never really considered, different way of movement. And with all the supplies we had, and there was an angle of the competition that really emphasized resource management. There was this really big push on wanting to stay within budget and being clever, not just paying for all the fancy components you need and getting a perfect working car. And I liked those, and I think as a group, we really enjoyed that constraint because that helped us really think outside the box. And
There was a pretty high number of marks allotted for uniqueness and an equally high number of marks allocated to creativity. How did you interpret that?
You don't necessarily start out with the idea of how weird can I make this? How beetle-like can I make my Scuttlebug? But it's more, what have we seen that works in the past? Why does that work? And then how can we make something new or reinvent it into something else that could possibly work better or serve a different purpose?
How does that look forward to professional engineering, do you think? Like what makes that sort of idea of being able to think creatively um, is useful for professional engineers?
If you look at what works around you, you look at experiences that you've had, you look at kind of, for me in a lot of cases, how humans interact with things, and you figure out how you can make that better in a new way through your own experiences. And that sounds like a really kind of airy way to talk about it. It doesn't sound like you're doing calculus or like physics or hard math there. But I found that that kind of comes later. But you need that synthesis of an idea, and you need a group of people who are willing to ask the stupid questions and bounce ideas off of with you.
Like it's your experiences and drawing off of a wealth of other things that make you more creative. And I think it's like it's not going to be the 99 people who come up with the same best solution that we already know. It's going to be the one person or the one group of people who come up with something new and creative.
I think the fact that having a more diverse set of experiences and viewpoints, it only helps with making more interesting connections. So I think Owen was right in the sense that when you have everyone going with like the way that it's always done, But when one person looks a bit closer and they're like, well, in my last co-op experience, or well, from this other PNG I talked with, they spoke in their work about doing this in a completely different way. And it might break the system in the beginning, but I think being able to synthesize and adapt from that really novel way of thinking is always possible to add and build to whatever projects you're working on. And I think in the engineering discipline is how the discipline grows as the body of knowledge and how things are done expands. We get more interesting ways of looking at solving problems.
The different connections, that creativity aspect, that design aspect, that's what really sets engineers apart is people who can take like those more fundamental scientific concepts that we learn in class and stuff and apply it to designs. And like there's a reason it's called applied science in our degree. It's about applying it. It's about applying it to design. So I think that like design experience and that creativity is what really um, can sets engineers apart as a profession.
Sydney, do you want to just share some highlights of what your work term experience has been so far?
Yeah.
Where you think it's taking you?
I did my first kind of STEM internship when I was in grade 11, and I was writing some code for a plasma physicist at the U of A. And it was kind of dipping my toes in, as Matt said, the applied part of, I think that was Matt who said it, the applied part of applied science. Um, and so I got to see how we could take this like idea of nuclear fusion to create energy and engineer it into existence. And that's what got me interested in doing mechatronics. My first co-op was um, doing some automation for a car manufacturing plant, kind of around the Waterloo area. And then I did 2 terms in the oil field because I'm from Alberta, so I wanted to go back home and see what engineering looks like kind of in different pockets of Canada. And I also did a co-op here at Waterloo with the Ideas Clinic, which is one of the engineering research groups for students. Moving forwards, I'm still waiting for funding, but I'll hopefully be doing some research in black hole thermodynamics at the University of Waterloo.
Black hole thermodynamics.
Yeah. So, um, in there's things like Hawking radiation where we see that, or our math tells us that could be emitted from black holes. So we know that there's some energy process happening in it. I'm hopefully going to be working with some professors here on campus and aiding in their research in some experimental focused ways so that we can hopefully bring in some more engineering and figure out devices and probes and that sort of thing that could be used in the future to help prove some of our theoretical theories.
I love hearing about non-traditional engineering. Like the world is the world is expanding, our knowledge is expanding, our reach is expanding. So getting into something like that sounds just cool, cool, cool. Owen, do you want to share some of your work term experience?
My first three were pretty similar. They're all with manufacturing, my hometown Peterborough, because I did a lot of digital stuff, mainly just because I didn't have too much other engineering experience. I built up a lot of knowledge about businesses.
Well, okay, but
Um,
the digital world is also expanding. We're going to be doing so much in virtual reality, augmented reality, and the digital space. That's really important work too. Where do you see yourself heading?
yeah, it's more interesting to talk about for me. I personally still don't really know entirely. I think that's one of my favorite parts about engineering is it's just so broad.
Mm,
There's so much to do. Uh, future, I can say is I'll definitely still be trying out new things. Just want to keep learning.
nice. Matthew?
Me and Owen actually worked at the same place for our first co-op. It's not my hometown, but it was for Pepsi.
Okay.
And we work and I did like quality control stuff, so that was a lot. That was like a lot of Excel type work,
Mhm.
VBA scripts, that type of stuff. And then my next co-op, I ended up at a startup in Toronto, which was really cool. It was
Mhm.
at shout out Viral Technologies. They do like vinyl making machines. It was like a lot of mechanical CAD stuff. For my third one, I was working at like a lumber mill, just like doing PLC maintenance. And then my last one was at the university as sort of a research type role. It was the same one Sydney had previously, where helping profs with their teaching materials. But in that, I had some different responsibilities. So it was a lot of mechanical design, CAD. My main project was getting a conveyor belt working as a teaching material, which has led me into my next role coming up, which is a mechanical designer at a automation company. So yeah,
Nice.
yeah.
Irina, what's your experience been so far?
First one was in Toronto, but it happened to be for government, like for
Mm,
the province of Ontario as a IT assistant. Management and organization with resources, I think was the main focus of that co-op. Second one happened to be back at the University of Waterloo as a teaching assistant. So once again, working with professors, trying to figure out how to teach the fundamentals of engineering, which is a really good brush up on some of the many things I may have forgotten during my first year. My third co-op happened to be at a manufacturing plant in Mississauga, and they were in the middle of launching some really new, cool, like sporting goods items, like bike hubs. And a lot of my work was trying to figure out getting data, figuring out what the biggest problems and flaws there are with parts. And I liked it so much and the environment and the people there, like the PNGs, all the technicians, and like everyone was so knowledgeable and super invested that I
mhm.
went back as a R&D assistant. And there I worked on directly working with newer products and trying to help support them as they launch and make their way into the market, which has opened up a new side of product development for me.
Okay.
I've never considered that I'd have, as an engineering student with that's only really in third year, having that experience to feel comfortable enough to contribute your ideas into making something new. But I think good ideas can be found anywhere. It's just learning through experience the type of skills, the math, the physics you need to actually make those ideas fleshed out. And that happens as a team. That never happens on an individual level. It's always checked and double checked before any big decisions made.
The idea of getting into design engineering, seemed to what my cohort really wanted, but also acknowledged it was going to be really, really hard to do. I know we talked about it earlier. A couple of you have intersected a little bit with the chapter. Maybe can you talk about that?
I my first main intersection, the University of Waterloo last fall had the opportunity of putting on the Professional Engineers Ontario Student Conference. So I helped
Mm,
volunteer for that and helped with some of the organization there. And I was around. Uh, I also have the very lovely opportunity to be the Waterloo Engineering Society's Vice President of Communications, which that Vice President External Responsibilities, I sit as the student representative from Waterloo's Engineering Society on the PEO board um, during my on-term school. So that's how I've interacted with the board a lot more there. And then just recently, I also, in that role, had the chance to put on a panel where we hosted some members from the the board, the PEO board, the local chapter's PEO board,
mhm.
to speak to Waterloo engineering students who are interested in getting their PNG.
Was it
I
successful?
I think it was very successful. We had good attendance. Everyone seemed like they got a lot of questions in. We opened it up to like people could just go and talk to board members individually, and I think some
Mm,
people were able to make some good connections there. And
cool. And Sydney, you've had some dealings with the chapter, you said.
For a couple terms, I was the president of Engerqueers, which is a NSOC affiliate club that works to support queer students who are in engineering and just across campus generally. And they started having national conferences, and I had the pleasure of being able to represent the school in attending the first two that they held. And both times, I believe, we had Professional Engineers of Ontario there to kind of talk about what it means to have a PEng and how you can use your PEng to enact positive change around you, which is a spin that I really enjoyed hearing. Something as a minority in engineering, I think we hear a lot from people about all the cool things you can do with your degree and all of the different ways you can take your career, but not necessarily how you can help people or how you can help
Mm.
create systemic change that affects a lot of people and a lot of people who are in engineering. So it's nice to hear kind of how the chapter's been working with um, groups kind of just around the province and engineering students and supporting people kind of through their engineering degree and into getting their PhD.
30 by 30 committee. This is they're they're working towards this goal of having 30% of the newly licensed engineers be female by 2030. They hosted an event a couple of weeks ago, which I was able to attend. Two representatives from Engineers Canada who advise all of the engineering associations across Canada, but they're broadening their scope to say we're going to add additional goals of just making the engineering practice more welcoming and inclusive, just as a more open to all. So, you're bringing up representing other sort of minority groups or groups that may find additional challenges joining sort of a traditional engineering role or being discouraged in that. And so I thought it was very cool that Engineers Canada advising all the associations on how to just keep the engineering profession an open and welcoming sort of profession and environment for everyone, right? However you define yourself and whatever role you're in. And I thought that was really cool. What's your thought on sort of PN status?
I had coworkers who were in the process of who were already PNs who were in the process of getting their PN. I saw a lot of technicians there as well, also wanting to get licensed. I mean, there's
Yeah.
just a big push for educating yourself and getting a lot more skilled because it truly does help with the more effective environment and having more effective projects. And
Nice.
honestly, seeing that and being surrounded by so many people who are so open about talking about licensing and made me want to definitely consider getting PEO very soon in the future. Yeah.
Something that Waterloo really hammers home in your first year is engineering ethics. The profs break down what it means to be a PEng and the added level of responsibility and the due diligence and who kind of in society you owe responsibility to. And so they talk a lot about safety and other people, which I think is a really fantastic thing to be championing for the people in our world who are contributing kind of the next generation of technologies or the next generation of innovation. And especially right now, I think it's fantastic that the PEng as a concept exists to kind of help people and help new and upcoming engineers know how to best help the people around them, help the world, and enact positive change and not necessarily do things just based on money and time scale and that sort of thing.
Yeah, I think I'm definitely going for my PN. I think I really like the involvement and the community it can definitely give you. Um, like working with like your local chapter as a big NSHOC person here. For me, I sort of would be definitely interested in uh, becoming involved with my local PEO chapter as also that sort of like community involvement and like continuing to grow as like a leader and stuff. Additionally, I stand by what the PN stands for and like mentoring people and continuing to monitor the profession. So I definitely think I'd be interested in my PN in the future.
Great. You guys are all really helping me out with my commercial spot here. What do you think, Owen? You're on board too?
Yeah, I think so for sure.
This isn't supposed to
It's
be some pressure pitch, by the way.
no, it's I think Matthew and Sydney both hit the two things, which is like it builds up our community as engineers, and it holds us accountable, and it makes sure we all remember that our first responsibility is to the public.
It's great. So I hope to see you all, at some point in the future at one of our licensing events. But it's really cool to see, how proud people are to come up and get their license and bring their family with them and or friends or their mentors or supporters and receiving their PEng license. I hope to see that in your future for all of you too. Really appreciate the time that you spent with me, kind of coming back together again as a team. Are you going to compete in WEC again next year, I think?
Yeah, I definitely think so.
So thank you very much for everybody. Thanks for joining me. But I really appreciate it. That's beautiful. You're all on a really great path. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks so much.
Thanks.
Okay. Thank you all.